Welcome back to AM Prime here on WESN Content Capital. Thank you for staying with us this morning. And now welcome to the conversation the Divisional Manager of Corporate Services at the Housing Development Corporation, Mr. Jeremy Campbell. Good morning, Mr. Campbell.
Good morning, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining me. Mr. Campbell, you're here to speak about a new education campaign that's been launched by the HDC with regards to illegal occupancy. Now, the slogan is not yours. Let's start there behind the choice of the slogan and precisely the effect that you hope it has as part of this education campaign.
Right, so this is one of the other campaigns that we would have launched to address a situation that we would have seen a spike in over the last couple of quarters. We are seeing a rise in persons who are, one, moving into our properties illegally, but there are also persons who are subletting units illegally to persons. So what we are trying to drive home in this campaign is that, one, you need to come to the HGC, you need to follow certain guidelines, protocols based on the cabinet-approved policy of being allocated a home. If you have not done so, that house that you're occupying or trying to occupy is not yours. So this is just another campaign in which we are trying to educate the public so that they understand the do's and don'ts of home ownership.
You said you've seen a spike in illegal occupancy, so it's a problem that's plagued the HGC. When you say a spike, are you referring to a particular time frame, for example, following the COVID-19 pandemic, during the COVID-19 pandemic, or is it, more so now than ever?
Well, so it has been a perennial problem that we would have experienced during COVID. Obviously, persons would have been in dire situations, so they felt that the need of getting a home was to do it illegally by moving in illegally. So we would have seen a trend, an upward trend that is a bit alarming. It would have occurred before COVID, but we are seeing a trend that is a bit concerning moving forward. And that's why we felt the need to have this campaign to advise persons of the do's and don'ts and how to go about getting an HGC property.
And how is this campaign going to be any different in terms of communicating with all stakeholders and perhaps all illegal occupants?
So normally what we do, we have a verification survey that the agency does in the back end, because this is something that happens periodically. We always go to our sites to do verifications to determine who the occupants are. We have campaigns that we normally run in the background, but we felt the need to have a very foregoing campaign this time around, where this will basically supplement what customers will be seeing on site. They'll be seeing our social and our security officers coming on site to verify that John Doe is the occupant of the property, which is something that we always do. But we want to ensure that persons know that we are coming, we are looking at the situation, and it's also illegal to occupy an HGC property. There's a trespassing act that clearly says if you break into a unit that is not yours, an HGC property or not, you're either liable to a $100,000 fine or 15 years imprisonment. So it's something that we want to ensure that the public understands. You can't just move into an HGC property. You can't move into any property that is not yours. But this is something that we want to do just to educate the public so that they know that we are coming, that we are looking, and it's a problem that we want to address.
How does illegal occupancy affect the corporation stakeholders?
So there's various things that occur, which is a good question. So when someone occupies a unit illegally, there's two scenarios. One, a unit that is now constructed, newly built, someone moves in illegally. What that does, one, it affects the person who has been legally allocated that property. They are now out of a home. They can't move in because obviously we have to now remove that person that is illegally in the property. AGC now has to spend taxpayers' money to remediate those units, right, which is an additional cost. In addition to this, if it's an apartment or a townhouse complex, you find that the illegal persons may have put illegal connections for electricity. What that does, it compromises not only that particular unit, but the neighbors as well. The entire building now needs to be re-inspected. That entire building could be engulfed in flames because the connection was done illegally. So there are a lot of challenges that occur once somebody moves in illegally to a property. It affects not just the person who has been waiting for a home, but the persons who are actually living in the community could be affected.
Now, if this verification process of which you highlighted previously is constantly ongoing, how is it that this spike in illegal occupancy has occurred or been allowed to occur?
So it's not a situation that was allowed to occur. Although we are very prevalent in our sites, AGC can't be everywhere at once. So construction is something that is it's a cyclical phenomenon. So once a unit is being built, obviously we have contractors on site, we have security on site. But over the course of the night, someone can basically move in illegally. Right. In addition to that, there's a subletting issue where AGC would have allocated your property, and for whatever reason, you would have given it to your niece or your nephew to live in that property. that person is illegal. Now, you may not think it's illegal because it's a family member of yours, but that person hasn't been allocated that house by the HGC. So when our verification team comes about, we will see that person as being not the person that was registered, but it's an illegal occupant. And that means that we now have to trigger our machinery to get that person out of the unit. But because construction is cyclical and we can't be everywhere at once, persons can move into a property illegally at night, and then we have to now remove that person. So it's a situation where we want to educate the public to cease and desist from this behavior, because there's a $100,000 fine and there's a 15-year imprisonment that comes with that type of action.
In fact, have any of these fines actually been issued with regards to illegal occupancy?
So the agency has been working with the TTPS. It is something that we are working very closely with them on. I can't speak to the fact if they have executed any particular arrests as yet, but it's something that has been ongoing for quite a number of years. So I'm not sure exactly as to the statistics, but it is something that we would have arrested persons for over the course of the years.
Has the culture of, I suppose, how society is now, has the culture that HEC has gifted me this house, that I'm owed this house, has that also been part of the problem as it relates to illegal occupancy?
Yeah, there's a cultural change that needs to occur. What we have done, we basically would have had 3 campaigns over the last couple of months. We would have had the relaunch of HAFS, which is the database that you would have applied for when you want to get an agency house. That gives you a reference number and that kind of thing. And then in January, we had the More Ways to Pay campaign, where we show persons, once you get a house, you need to now pay for the house. And now we are basically doing this illegal campaign to show that you can't just move in a property illegally. So what we have been doing is using educational campaigns to allow us to educate the public, to change the culture that an agency house is free, that when you get it, you don't have to pay for it. So we know that this is a process, not an event. It will take time, but we are putting systems in place to ensure that these situations are remediated.
But who's responsible for creating this culture in the first place? Is it just the mindset of those who are applying to HGC? Or rather, is that HGC has not been fully committed to even their own principles?
I won't say that it's a blame game, really. I would say that it's a situation where the government is in the business of providing low and affordable, safe housing to the public, and that's what we are trying to do. For whatever reason, persons believe that low and affordable housing are free, but this is something that we are actually trying to curb. So we believe with these campaigns moving forward, we would be able to address that cultural change.
Would you say that some were actually allowed to ignore their obligations towards the HGC?
I wouldn't say they were allowed. Persons who are, for example, in arrears are written. Persons who fail to comply and complete their mortgages are written by also TTMF, the bank, and those kind of things. What we are doing now is trying to make sure that we address the situation via educational campaigns so everybody knows what the do's and don'ts are, right? So that when other measures are put in place, the public will know, okay, agency will have communicated effectively and we will have ensured that these steps are taken to assist the customers. But we are doing everything in the background and in the foreground to assist customers in changing this culture.
The corporation is willing to take drastic action to ensure that all these issues are resolved, because if I'm not mistaken, around 55% of HEC homeowners are actually in arrears to the corporation. Is it that the corporation is actually willing to take drastic action?
So I can't speak to the 55%. I don't have that figure in front of me. However, the action that we are taking obviously is going to be, I won't say drastic, but it's very proactive approaches. We are moving in a direction where we want persons to adhere to their financial obligations. We want them to pay for their property. We want them to finalize their mortgages in a time frame that is realistic and within the normal financial guidelines. So we are being more proactive in addressing these issues. And we believe that with these measures put in place, these strategies will work.
That 55%, by the way, coming from Chairman Noel Garcia at the Oasis Gardenings opening. You know, I understand everything that you said thus far. This campaign, I agree with. It's just how we've got about establishing this campaign. But in some instances, for example, there are families who have suggested that they have been in contact with HCC to try and become legal occupiers, but there's been no communication back. Is that also an issue, the communication between HCC and occupants? And by extension, that goes back to the question, how is this campaign going to lead to different, effective communication?
Right, so we would have, so there's 2 things happening at the same time. Persons who are illegally occupying a unit, we advise them to come to the corporation, advise them to come and tell us exactly what the situation is. What we have found is that persons are fearful that if they come and tell us that something will happen or we will throw them out or something will happen to them. That's not the case. We are doing this campaign so that customers feel comfortable and welcome to come to the HGC. If you are in a unit where you would have been subletting from a friend, family, someone, that property is not yours. We are advising that you come to us, you advise us so that we could put the necessary legal steps in place to retrieve the unit and see how we can assist you if possible. Persons who are illegally moving to the properties, they as well, this campaign is a way to ensure that they understand that there's ramifications. You are moving in illegally into a property and you're putting yourself at risk because once the TTPS comes there and they see that this person is not a agency tenant, you are now liable to a $100,000 fine and 15 years imprisonment, similar to the persons who are subletting the unit. So it's not a situation of communication. I think that the customers, they need to come to us, and that's what this campaign is about. Come to us so we can have a conversation with you. Once you come to us, we can then see how best we can assist you. Now, sometimes the AGC is not the only avenue that you can go to address your situation. A home may not be the solution. There may be other social campaigns or social initiatives from other ministries that may be able to better align to what the customer needs. But by them coming to us, it allows us to have those conversations.
Mr. Campbell, by no way am I advocating for any illegal occupancy, and I'm not in any way. In fact, I'm against anything illegal. I think we all need to follow the laws. But one of the things that obviously ticks in my mind, I'm looking at a release here on April 11th, 2023, from the HGC, and it says the HGC recognizes that some of these illegal occupants may have fallen on hard times and resorted to illegally occupying the premises. One of the families referenced that they've actually applied for government housing for over 14 years. Given this understanding that the HGC says, okay, we understand that you've fallen on hard times, we don't want to be completely heartless, but 14 years waiting for housing, how do we go about trying to resolve that issue?
Well, I mean, we need to be pragmatic as well, and we need to be realistic. Applying for an agency house is not a guarantee that you'll get through. If you apply for a loan in the bank, it's not a guarantee that you'll get through. If you apply for university, it's not a guarantee you'll get through. There are certain parameters that dictate being approved for allocation. One, you need to qualify for the areas that you would have applied for, and two, the areas that you applied for need to be ready. So when a person may have applied 14 years ago, the income may have been, let's say, $4,000 or $5,000 a month, they may have wanted an apartment in Arima. Currently, we don't have any apartments in that particular area, so obviously the time frame of their waiting will all depend on what they would qualify for and the areas that they would want. So it's a very ticklish, and we understand that dynamic, but persons need to understand that once you apply for the agency, it's not an automatic guarantee that one you'll get through, and it all depends on what you qualify for and where you apply. There's a local, like a culture of Trinidad and Tobago, where everyone wants a single family home. The data would show this, but it's not possible for AGC or any housing development corporation worldwide to build those types of units all over the place because it takes up more land space, is more feasible to build apartments and townhouses, but in some instances, families may not want an apartment or a townhouse. They may want a single family so they can put up a wall, they can extend, but sometimes that is not feasible. So the waiting period really depends on what you apply for, where you apply for it, and how and what you would qualify for. Similar to if you apply to the bank or for a university or for a car loan, anything.
Now, what of the other issues, and by the way, I'm glad that you're clarifying certain things. Minister Camille Robertson originally said corporation had a mandate not to provide just housing, but safe housing.
Exactly.
Now, excellent, well done. But one of the things is, in terms of illegal occupancy, there was one HCC complex that was condemned since 2010. Since 2010, I apologize. But it's remained there, it's left there. Has the HCC not acting upon these things, such as the housing complex being condemned, and not acting upon these things, administration after administration, also allowed for illegal occupancy? I know you said earlier that I can't agree with you saying that it's been allowed, but certain actions suggest that how the HCC has not necessarily been proactive.
So that particular building was condemned years ago. Actually, it was boarded up. We had bricks to block certain entrances and exits. What we would have found is that persons would have still moved into these properties and have their families there. The reason why the agency intervened the last couple of weeks, based on the report that you would have said, is that these persons who would have gone into this property has put themselves and their families at risk. This was an HSE concern because that building was condemned due to flooding issues a while ago, right? So we are being proactive to address those issues, but persons are still moving into properties that we have publicly condemned. So there's a situation where this campaign is one where we need to advise persons, if you're in a situation, come to us and have a conversation. Don't move into building that we have publicly condemned. You're putting yourself at risk because it's known, as you said from the report years ago, that that building was condemned and persons have still moved in. Persons have actually moved in, put in brand new doors and tried to have illegal connections there, which would have compromised themselves and the environment as well.
Mind you, Mr. Campbell, in the year 2023, that's 13 years later, people are occupying it since then. So, and it's only now becoming an issue. So this particular campaign, has it already been launched, this ongoing education awareness campaign?
It has been launched. It was launched last month. We would have had numerous interviews like this. Thank you for having us again to advise persons as to what you should do and what you shouldn't do. It's an ongoing campaign. Like I said, we have a very robust social and security team that will be going out there to do verification surveys. And from those verification surveys, that's how we get the data as to how what strategies we need to put in place to address these issues. So we just want the public to work with us. And the good thing about it is that a lot of the information that we get on illegal occupancy and persons who are subletting units comes from the public. So we are thankful the public is sharing information with us, and we are thankful the public feels the need and sees how dangerous it is for someone to be occupying a unit illegally. So we want that continued support, and this campaign is a way to address that.
Now, it's been a month, so we can't necessarily rate the results as yet, but we can speak about the response. Has the response by those who have participated and by those whom the HDC have targeted, has the response been warmly accepted with a good reception, that is? It
has. Like I said, we have the hotline, 3394HDC, or you could email us at securityissues@hdc.gov.tt. And we have been getting information through those channels and through the other channels that we normally historically would have gotten updates and information from as well. The social and security team are currently going to these various developments to gather information. So I would say the campaign has been a success, but obviously it's too early to see what the figures are. But we have been getting a lot of information from the public, and we're very thankful for that.
Certainly. And this project is also part of the HDC returning to its original moorings, I would say, perhaps affordable housing, but you have your part as well. It's affordable housing, not free housing.
Exactly. Well said. Well said.
Certainly. Well, Mr. Jeremy Campbell, thank you very much for joining me this morning. You thanked me for the interview, but I must say it's always a pleasure when you make yourself available and when members, in authority make themselves available for education and for awareness and for a greater understanding. So thank you very much for your time this morning. I wish you all the best in your campaign. Hopefully we can, probably analyze it further in the months to come.
I look forward to that. We look forward to meeting again and having more discussion in the future.
Certainly, Well, thank you very much. All the best to you.
Thank you. All right, you too. Thank you. Take care.
And that was Mr. Jeremy Campbell, Divisional Manager of Corporate Services at the Housing Development Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a quick break here on AM Prime. When we return, we'll conclude this morning's edition of the program. Stay tuned.